Thursday, March 5th.
Just dating ourselves. I don't think the Sweet 16s are playing that now.
Aren't they? Do they
No, they play
play Celebration?
Well, they play like Demi Lovato and things like that.
Oh, really? I don't get invited
The kids
anymore.
these days, Brian.
Right, yeah.
Oh, they have huge Sweet 16s. A friend of mine here at work was showing me pictures last weekend of her daughter's Sweet 16, a friend party. It's like a wedding.
Yeah.
They all were dressed in white.
I know.
She had a wedding party. She had her Sweet 16 party, a bunch of girls and the guys, and they had to wear all white, and they had to wear tuxedos.
It's incredible because you have to pick out your best friends.
Well, you know what started it. The MTV show.
That's right.
My Super Sweet 16 got started
They
with the
used to
TV show,
spend-
as much of life does these days.
Remember their presents? They would get like
Yeah.
BMWs.
Yeah, they did.
Ferraris.
I know.
I'm still waiting for my first.
So anyway, it is a super sweet Thursday, and we've got lots to tell you about. We're gonna start with a story that is going to outrage you, and you will be surprised at how little outrage there is in the mainstream media. Yesterday, the Supreme Court was listening to a case, June Medical Services versus Russo. It was a challenge to a Louisiana state law that required abortion doctors to have admitting privileges at hospitals within 30 miles of the facility. Well, clearly, on a big case like this, you have both sides in front of the Supreme Court, including the Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, who, listen to this soundbite, it sure sounds like he is threatening two members of the Supreme Court.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
Well, now we know. Yeah, go ahead.
Justice Roberts, he was not happy about that. He issued a very rare rebuke. You normally don't hear from the justices. They try to stay above board on this thing, but he had to defend himself. And he said, justices know that criticism comes with the territory, but threatening statements of this sort from the highest levels of government are not only inappropriate, they are dangerous. All members of the court will continue to do their job without fear or favor from whatever quarter.
Now, I am not sure if he wrote those comments down, because one thing about Chuck Schumer, he's glued to the copy like he's never seen it before, even on the simplest statement. But he seemed to be ad-libbing that. So I thought to myself, he's probably going to come out with an apology and talk about the need for his candidate to win the presidency in order to get a more liberal Supreme Court. But it wasn't like that at all. In fact, he didn't apologize at all. Here's what the president says in a tweet. This is a direct and dangerous threat to the U.S. Supreme Court by Schumer. If a Republican did it, he or she would be arrested or impeached. Serious action must be taken. Schumer's spokesperson, Justin Goodman, came back with Senator Schumer's comments were a reference to the political price Senate Republicans will pay for putting these justices on the court. For Justice Roberts to follow the right wing's deliberate misinterpretation of what Senator Schumer said, or remaining silent when President Trump attacked Justice Sotomayor Ginsburg last week.
Okay, so
it shows Justice Roberts does not call balls and
That is laughable.
The president didn't attack Sotomayor. He was just asking those two justices to recuse themselves because they were heard saying political biased remarks about him.
So for the senator's spokesperson, Schumer's spokesperson, to say the comments were a reference to the political price Senate Republicans would pay for putting these justices on the Supreme Court. He's talking about senators, Republican senators. Mr. Schumer was very clear. He was talking about two members of the Supreme Court. Listen to the soundbite again. Watch.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
The American Bar Association, that is not biased, doesn't have a political leaning at all, they said they're deeply troubled, there is no place for threats, and it's inappropriate.
Well, here's what Josh Hawley said. Josh Hawley said, I would normally expect the Senate Minority Leader to apologize, but he said he has no shame, so today he's going to be filing censure measures against the man right there, Charles Schumer, who sure sounded like to a lot of people like he was threatening two members of the Supreme Court. We should remember, Donald Trump, when he did mention Sotomayor and Ginsburg a while back, and he also, once upon a time, referred to this guy is an Obama judge, to which the Supreme Court Justice John Roberts came out and said, look, there are no Obama judges or Trump judges. We are an independent judiciary. So he has taken shots at politicians before the Chief Justice. But nonetheless, this sounds like a threat.
Yeah, and you just expect more. Number one, when you get into a leadership position, you're supposed to modulate others who might be flying off the handle, and then you come in and you maybe massage some type of apology. But for Chuck Schumer to take the lead and lose it like that, and then to have his staff, which arguably, is as sophisticated and experienced as anybody on Capitol Hill, come back with that retort and insult everyone with that explanation, it makes me think that my hope is that he will walk this back today. But as you mentioned, Josh Hawley's going to look to censure him.
Well, Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana, he says he's disappointed. He thinks he should also apologize. I wish all the justices would come together and just say, look, no more political comments. We want to stick together. We might have been appointed by Obama. We might have been appointed by President Trump. Yeah. But we try not to have any political leanings.
So as you might have noticed, Joe Biden had a really good Super Tuesday. And as you might have noticed, he picked up another state yesterday, and that was Maine, setting up the ultimate cage match. Bernie against Biden, at stake, the Democratic nomination.
What's interesting is Bernie has adopted a more aggressive tone with Joe Biden, who yesterday he was talking about is my longtime friend, we're colleagues, blah, 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 blah. Then he went out in front of the cameras in Burlington, Vermont, and made it very clear we are two different politicians with two different visions for America, and America is going to have to pick between the two of us.
Well, here is millionaire Senator Bernie Sanders on Biden running a campaign supported by billionaires.
Joe is running a campaign which is obviously heavily supported by the corporate establishment. At last count, he has received funding from at least 60 billionaires. 60 billionaires. When you have a campaign which is funded very significantly by the wealthy and the powerful, does anyone seriously believe that a president backed by the corporate world is going to bring about the changes in this country that working families and the middle class and lower income people desperately need?
He said he swore off political negative ads. That is over. He actually put out a pro-Obama ad that the Obama people, some on the left, are upset about because they think it makes it seem like he's endorsing Bernie Sanders, which he's not. So now he's going to go after Biden on entitlement cuts, the Iraq war, bad trade agreements, and the Wall Street bailout. He believes that his Waterloo is probably Michigan next week, which he shocked the world and beat Hillary in. He thinks he could do it again. However, he's trailing Biden there, and Biden picked up some big union support yesterday.
It's interesting, over the last few days, this has become a one-on-one race between those two right there. Elizabeth Warren, people are wondering if she's going to drop out. Her campaign manager sent out an email to the staffers yesterday. Pretty frank email, said, we are obviously disappointed, and Elizabeth is talking with our team to assess the path forward. This decision is in her hands, and it's important that she has the time and space to consider what comes next.
And speaking of what comes next, what is really interesting is yesterday, Ilhan Omar and Donald Trump essentially were on the same page. Ilhan Omar said Bernie would have beaten Biden on Super Tuesday if Elizabeth Warren would have dropped out. And that's essentially what Donald Trump told Sean Hannity last night on his show. Watch.
I think Elizabeth Warren, who did terribly last night, but she got enough votes that if Bernie Sanders would have had those votes, and I assume he would have gotten a vast majority, he would have won all of those places, or certainly most of them. He would have won Texas. He would have won Minnesota. He would have won Massachusetts. So Elizabeth Warren, really what she did, and, others left, they dropped out, and they supported Joe Biden. And that really helped. Bernie Sanders, if he were able to convince Elizabeth Warren to endorse him, or even to just drop out because she's doing terribly, he would have won a large number of the states that he lost last night.
Listen to some of these words that are going to come out of Bernie Sanders, because it'll give you an understanding of how close the Democrats are to coming together. This fix, the rich are picking them, the establishment is picking these candidates, we are left out, we're exiled. Now, last time Hillary Clinton with superdelegates gave their impression, and many agree, that the game was rigged against them. When she took over the DNC and basically had them work for her, that was hardcore proof of it. But so far, you just see people consolidating around Biden. It's hard to think that he could see any underhandedness in it. But if you want to alienate his supporters and prevent any Democratic nominee outside Bernie Sanders from winning, continue to have the tone that Bernie had yesterday of saying the establishment doesn't want us to win, because that's the type of thing that exercises and radicalizes his followers.
And they've been saying, Bernie's been talking like that ever since he got screwed out of the nomination 4 years ago. What's interesting, going back to what the president was talking about, is apparently Bernie spoke on the phone yesterday to Elizabeth Warren. He did not reveal what they decided. However, it has also been suggested he would like to see her in his administration. And
he
she
should have
is
called her before
reassessing.
Super Tuesday and told her that.
Well, nonetheless, you know, she's in his way.
Why do you
he
think,
knows that.
Why do you think she didn't drop out before Super Tuesday when she saw the folks that were supporting Biden dropping out, like Amy Klobuchar and Mayor Pete Steyer?
Well, I think
that is the
Does she want to run
$500
for
million.
president one day? Is that it?
A couple of things. Number one, she got $29 million in February, and if she didn't feel humiliated after New Hampshire, after losing New Hampshire, a border state, she thought that she could probably be a little bit more representative in Massachusetts. But the other thing to keep in mind, too, is Elizabeth Warren had the same choice 4 years ago, and she chose Hillary Clinton. What changed? Bernie Sanders was the same guy. Obviously, we're in the same suits,
Look at that, Brian. If Warren had dropped out and those delegates, I know some of them were from previous primaries, but if those 61 delegates were in Sanders' team, they would be neck and neck.
Exactly. They would
But they
be
are still neck and neck.
They are.
They are. So nonetheless, will she drop out? There was some suggestion she would drop out yesterday, like Bloomberg did. And by the way, the cover of the Daily News is hilarious. Bloom and bust. If you can see this, I spent $500 million and all I got was this lousy T-shirt. Thank you, Mike.
It was
The
just
funny thing is, that's not a lot of money to him. He's like, I don't care.
I know, it's like $50.
Right.
I know. At some, you probably write it off with our new tax system.
Listen, tonight, right here on the Fox News Channel, 12 hours from right now, Brett and Martha will be hosting the President of the United States live from Scranton, a town hall. It will be 1 hour long, and it should be great, and you'll only see it right here on Fox News Channel.
Yeah.
All right.
He hasn't done them in a while. I mean, since he was a candidate, so it's going to be interesting.
All right.
Have we been as successful as I would hope in bringing young people in? And the answer is no. We're making some progress. But historically, everybody knows that young people do not vote in the kind of numbers that older people voted. I think that will change in the general election. But I am to be honest with you, we have not done as well in bringing young people into the political process. It is not easy.
Okay, there you got Bernie Sanders. Super Tuesday, not so super for Senator Bernie Sanders, who had been the front runner as his strategy of rallying the youth vote fell flat. According to exit polls, the share of Democrat voters under 30 this year was smaller than it was in 2016. Here with more, we got radio talk show host Tony Katz joining us from Indianapolis. Tony, good morning to you. You know, Bernie said he has been saying... Good to see you. He's been saying, Bernie has, that he's expanding the Democratic Party by getting so many more younger voters involved. And when you look at his rallies, there are a lot of young people under 30. But on Tuesday, Tony, they didn't show up for Bernie.
Yeah, and Bernie's entire explanation doesn't really hold. Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, where every thought and prayer in the world with the people in Nashville, Virginia, it wasn't that they were off by 1% from 2016. They were off by 3, 4, 5% from 2016. So have people burnt out from the burn? That's an interesting question. But I really don't apply it to, well, they really like Joe Biden. If the argument from young people or any voter is who's best to possibly lose the least to Trump, Trump, well, then that might be Joe Biden in a lot of people's mind in this two-man race. But it isn't because all of a sudden younger people found an affinity for a guy who can't quote the Declaration of Independence or remember who his wife or who his sister is or talks about his hairy legs and corn pop. That's not it. It is that they may very well be looking at who, when matched up with Trump, will lose the least. And that could to them be Biden.
All right. So to the earlier point, let's go ahead and take a look at voters under the age of 29 in North Carolina. In 2016, look at that, 72% showed up. Then just this Tuesday, about half, 50%. Then when you look at South Carolina, 54% in 2016. It was closer this time, 52%. And finally, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, almost 70% in 2016. And Tony, it was just half in 2020. I wonder if it's issue-oriented, because when you're at the rallies, you know, it's very clear Bernie is for a lot of free stuff, but he's also for legalizing marijuana as well. And that does drive the numbers.
Well, he's for a lot of things that you could argue that young people are in favor of, or millennials are in favor of. But there are many of these things that Joe Biden is in favor of as well. There he is, bringing Beto O'Rourke onto the stage and says, Beto, you're going to work with me to take all the guns. Well, that might be something that actually, for people who know nothing about the Second Amendment and have bought into the scare tactics of people like Moms Demand Action and Shannon Watts, etc., right, might turn them on. But as for why they didn't show up, I still think we have to find this out and figure this out. And part of it could be the whirlwind from media and others from South Carolina to Super Tuesday may have had some people who would go out to the polls saying, I don't know what I want to do. When you think about the turnaround for Biden in South Carolina, thanks to Jim Clyburn and others, the dropping out of Klobuchar and of Pete Buttigieg, where maybe some of that vote could have also gone, they maybe said, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. It's like taking a look at Biden's numbers and assuming, well, it's all over. I don't know that it's all over. I'm curious to see what Michiganders are going to do, the people in Missouri are going to do, Kentucky this weekend. They've had some time to process all this. The people who voted for Biden may have looked at the girl in the bar at 2 a.m. and said, you're the one, and then woke up the next morning and said, oh gosh, what has happened here?
Why do you think Elizabeth Warren has not dropped out? Because the president yesterday said that Bernie would have done better if she would have dropped out.
And the president is right about that. I wrote an article about this at TonyKatz.com and asked, when you take a look at the Pete and Amy supporter, why do I assume they're going to Biden? Why wouldn't they go to Elizabeth Warren? Maybe you talk about the endorsement from the New York Times. You can go for another woman. You take a look at policy. It's, Buttigieg is more aligned with Bernie, but maybe you don't want the yelling. Why not go for Warren? Well, the people answered, they're not interested. She's a wholly unlikable person. When you're third place in your own state, that's a disaster, just like she was in fourth place in New Hampshire. Why doesn't she drop out? Because her ego is a mile wide. That could have one thing to do with it, because she could see a path to a spoiler as some kind of consensus candidate for those Bernie people who want the policies but don't want the rapper, and for those Biden people who don't trust that he can engage in 4 sentences without falling apart against Trump on a debate stage.
Well, let's see what happens. Tony Katz joining us from Indiana today. Sir, thank you very much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Meanwhile, you just heard what Tony thinks about Elizabeth Warren, but why does the media think Warren lost?
Our country is still very uncomfortable with women in power.
There's going to be a lot of digging as to why that didn't happen, whether it's sexism.
We're going to talk to Tomi Lahren on this topic. She joins us live next. Meanwhile, as Elizabeth Warren's campaign reassesses her path forward, will she drop out or stay in? Media wasting no time finding excuses for her lousy Super Tuesday performance.
You have these women, these very strong, very powerful, very smart women in this race. And then you have the women and you have all the white guys who have the delegates. What's going on here?
I have to say this whole dynamic really upsets me.
When it comes to executive office, our country is still very uncomfortable with women in power.
There's going to be a lot of digging as to why that didn't happen, whether it's sexism.
Well, here to react is Fox Nation host Tomi Lahren. Tomi, is it because she's a woman she's not resonating, or is it because she's the wrong woman?
Oh, the excuses continue. You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. The media tried this with Hillary Clinton in 2016. It didn't work, and now they're already making excuses for Elizabeth Warren, trying to convince us that somehow we might have some inherent sexism, misogyny, and that's why we don't like Elizabeth Warren. When, and in reality, it's probably the fact that she is a socialist like Bernie Sanders, but she's not as transparent about it as Bernie Sanders.
Hey, Tommy, I don't know if she got the memo or anyone on those panels got the memo. She lost her own state. That is not sexism. They got a good look at the fictional accounts of her life, of her background, of her different things that happened to her in the workplace. This stuff wasn't adding up, nor were her programs adding up. Why do people going back to gender or color?
Well, that's the easy thing to do. It's the victimhood narrative, and that's what you're going to see when President Trump wins again in 2020. It's going to be all the excuses because they don't want to answer for the fact that they have horrible candidates. But instead of talking about Elizabeth Warren and this supposed sexism, why don't we talk about the fact that Elizabeth Warren is still in this race because the establishment convinced her that she needed to stop Bernie Sanders, and so that's why she didn't drop out. That's why she's still fighting. That's why she's still trying to take down Bernie Sanders. We should be talking about the real phony here, and that's Elizabeth Warren herself.
She took down Bloomberg.
It doesn't take much. So good for her, but I don't think that she was the only element there.
I think most people support a woman being president. It's just you want the right woman. If Michelle Obama were running, I think she'd be on the top of the ticket.
Well, absolutely, but I think at the end of the day, Elizabeth Warren doesn't resonate. It has nothing to do with her being a woman. It has everything to do with her plans, policies. She's flip-flopping, and she's not being really genuine about what she believes in, how she's going to pay for her plans. The one thing I will give Bernie Sanders is he says he doesn't know how he's going to pay for it except for raising taxes, and he is a proud socialist, where Elizabeth Warren still tries to fool us into thinking she's not.
Finally, some honesty in politics. You know, we feature Tommy once a week here on the program, but she's every day, twice a day on Fox Nation. Tell us about your new program on No Interruption regarding the election and the integrity of it.
Well, I don't know if it's news to you guys or not, but we have a voter fraud and election integrity epidemic in the state of California. We're seeing it time and time again. We even saw it this time around with our primary elections, and I want to expose it, so I sat down with the great ladies of Election Integrity Project California to expose exactly what's going on in the state. Let's take a look.
Do you know you can register to vote and vote in California with never having been shown a picture ID? Because the registration form says, give us your driver's license number or your Social Security if you have one. And if you don't, you can still register.
So to say that illegal immigrants are voting is a given in this state.
Absolutely, even if we don't know the names, just because when you open the door to corruption and fraud, people are going to walk through it.
There you go.
And if Donald Trump loses this election because of illegal immigrants voting, double voters, dead voters, there's going to be a lot of Americans that are very upset. I encourage everyone to take a look at this episode because it's happening in California and it's going to happen in your state very soon.
All right, you can hear all about it and watch it on your smart device at foxnation.com if you don't have it. By the way, March is True Justice Month on Fox Nation. You get your first month for just 99 cents, and looky right there.
Who is that guy in the middle?
Right, I'm seeking a form of justice. I just don't know what it is.
All right, Tommy, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Tommy. And Nancy Grace joining the team. That's great.
That's great.
Okay, growing calls for Senator Schumer to be censured after unloading on Supreme Court Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, claiming that they will pay the price over their stance on abortion. The judge is going to weigh in on this.
Meanwhile.
All right, we've been telling you about Chief Justice Roberts issuing a rare, blistering rebuke to Chuck Schumer for these remarks at a pro-choice rally.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
Wow. And Justice Roberts isn't the only one upset. GOP Senator Josh Hawley tweeting this out. I would call to Schumer to apologize, but we all know he has no shame. So tomorrow I will introduce a motion to censure Schumer for his pathetic attempt of intimidation on the Supreme Court. Here to react, Fox News senior judicial analyst, host of Liberty File, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, was that a threat, that, as you heard it, legally?
No, I don't think legally it was a threat. I think it was hyperbolic. It was excessive use of words, and it was an attempt to intimidate, but it's protected speech. A threat where you have the present apparent ability to cause the harm you're threatening is not protected speech, but this is. However, this effort to politicize the court, to make them look like they can be intimidated by a mob outside the courthouse, is very, very dangerous to our system. We put in the hands of 9 human beings the ability to decide what the laws mean and what the Constitution means, and we accept those decisions because they have the moral authority to make them. When we begin to look at them as politicians in black robes instead of as the 9, it undermines respect for law, and that's the danger from what Senator Schumer said. It also doesn't make sense what he said. His problem is with the Louisiana legislature that wrote the statute that's being construed. At the time he said that, Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh hadn't uttered a peep about this statute.
But, Judge, you know that on big case days like yesterday in front of the Supreme Court, you always have hyperbolic statements being made by people from different political points of view. But to have the highest-ranking Democrat in the U.S. Senate make a threat and say, those 2 guys, you 2 are going to pay the price.
What could he possibly have meant by you're
Judge,
going to pay the price?
Think about who's listening to that. Somebody's going to hear, oh, yeah, they should pay the price. What stupid stuff?
Dangerous. That's
what stupid stuff might somebody do?
What else could
well, he might actually be sending a dog whistle to crazies out there. Look, I don't believe he will succeed in intimidating anybody in the court, which is why we give them life tenure, and they wear black robes, and they operate largely in secrecy, and it induces respect. But if more of this happens, they will not have the respect, and it will undermine the rule of law.
So Josh Hawley's going to introduce this motion to censure. What does that mean? What does censure mean?
Censure is a condemnation by the Senate of particular acts of one of its members. This is very rare. I don't blame Senator Hawley for doing this, but knowing Senator McConnell, who controls what happens on the floor, I don't think that's going to happen.
How significant is this when Justice Roberts comes out and says threatening statements of this sort from the highest levels of government are not only inappropriate, they are dangerous. All members of the court will continue to do their job without fear or favor from whatever quarter.
I applaud the Chief Justice for saying that. I never heard that in all the years I've been studying the Supreme Court. I don't believe a Chief Justice has ever had to do that, because I don't believe the Senate minority or majority leader ever stood in front of the courthouse and said to a justice, you're going to pay for that. If he's got a problem with the president for nominating Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, and with the Senate for confirming them, he can say whatever he wants. But to say you're going to pay for it is reprehensible. There's no place for that dialogue in our society.
Remember when President Obama, at the State of the Union, in front of the Supreme Court, sitting right down there, said, you guys got it wrong on Citizens United.
Yes.
That's different than threatening.
Yes. Listen, this is protected speech. I condemn what Schumer said, but will defend to the death his right to say it. But it is dangerous speech if more people pick up on it.
Totally irresponsible. Let's forget about legally. Totally irresponsible.
Absolutely.
As elected.
Maybe he was saying you're going to pay the price because these women that are pro-choice will be against you.
Doesn't matter who's for them or against them. They have a lifetime job. Right. The judiciary is the anti-democratic branch of government. Its job is not to see what the people want. Its job is to protect rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution.
Focus getting on the election will be that Supreme Court justice position that's most likely going to be open with Justice Ginsburg getting up there.
I would think so. And you know, this may backfire on Senator Schumer by making this more of an issue in the campaign.
All right, but I don't know how many of the other channels are actually talking about that.
When I heard he said this, I didn't believe it. I had to go and listen to the tape to make sure I heard it right.
Right, his lack of apology is stunning. Meanwhile, you can catch more of great insight like this from Judge Napolitano virtually free on Fox Nation at foxnation.com. And this month is Justice Month, where we're going to seek justice, and for 99 cents you get a free month.
Today I'm attacking the Patriot Act.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Don't you do that every day?
Almost. I've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay.
Great.